welcome everybody for what we're calling the coach onboarding session. And thank you for taking a little bit of time to do this with us today. We're aiming for it to be as informational for you as is possible. You know, this isn't something you need to do to work on Innoweave, so we really appreciate you giving some of your time to be with us today. Even though we're in a remote session, we always do start by doing territorial acknowledgement, which for us is where our head offices are for the McConnell Foundation. That's unceded Indigenous territory in Tiohtià:ke, which is Kanyen'kehá:ka territory. This is, you know, the traditional lands of those people. Today it's known as Montreal. But it's important for us to recognize that there is a First Nations heritage there that has long stewarded the territory and the waters in that place, and recognize that it's a place of meeting and exchange, which is something that we like to carry forward in the work that we do, and we see all of our conversations that we have, be they virtual or in person, as an opportunity to continue that spirit of exchange. In this case, we're doing some knowledge exchange. So today's roadmap, the pieces that we're going to take you through will include just sort of the welcome and housekeeping, which I just went over. We'll cover a little bit the origins and evolution of the Innoweave program. Then we're going to look at the coaching streams, just very quickly at a glance. Look at coaching principles, how to work on your online coach profile. We're going to go into some. I'm saying we here. Most of this is going to be Vero. Is going to go into the detail on the application process for an organization and approval, so give you a little bit of a sense of how that happens, the timelines, things like that. Look at what our roles and responsibilities during a coaching mandate. Cover the payment process, which is very important, and look at who you can connect with at Innoweave when you have questions or anything like that. We'll also talk a little bit about some of the things that we're working on for the future, or some of the different resources that we're aiming to share with coaches as we go forward. As we mentioned, we'll have a Q&A. So first, where did Innoweave come from, and what is this idea, and what does it mean? Well, the word Innoweave comes from somebody's imagination. I'm not sure who, but it's definitely a made-up word. It's there to represent this concept of connection and innovation and bringing those ideas together. But 11, 12 years ago now, there was an identified need in the Canadian charitable and nonprofit sector for some support related to those concepts of social innovation. So the idea for Innoweave, you know, this was incubated inside the McConnell Foundation. It was supported by many partners in different areas, like Cisco, like Imagine Canada, like the Ontario Trillium Foundation. All of these have been partners in different spaces. And we're looking to provide some support, some foundations to address these shared observations around the scale and the complexity of challenges the community sector is responding to, because those are growing, and understanding that business as usual is not delivering the results that we need, and that's for us as funders, and for the social sector at large. We know that if we were just to keep doing what we were doing today, it wouldn't be sufficient. And then rooting in this concept that social innovation offers new ways of doing things, but bringing social innovation into your work requires adaptation, and that's a challenge. And so to meet that challenge, we have this concept of the coach, which is what you are and what we're here to talk about today. So social innovation is one of those things that is a broad concept in itself, and it's something that can mean many things to different people. But in its core, we're talking about supporting people and organizations to co-create, learn, adapt, and scale more efficient or more impactful solutions for entrenched social challenges. And so it's about making our human and natural systems more adaptive and resilient. So there's a lot of research and writing that's been done on social innovation. Those who know, for instance, SIG, the Social Innovation Generation, work that was done over the last 10 years, that's where a lot of that comes from. But that's sort of the concept that Innoweave is rooted in, was this idea that social innovation has the potential to bring forward great change, and we should be helping organizations to do that, however it best suits for them. And to do that, I think one of the things we want to support is a change in perspective for organizations that are coming to Innoweave. Maybe not necessarily a change in their core or their orientation, but understanding of this concept of how do we use a lens of innovation to look at what we do, and how could that be better? So looking less at activities and programmatic spaces like, we serve 2,000 people a year through our program, and more to supporting organizations to drive the change that they want to see in the world. So we want to, instead of saying we want to serve 2,000 youth, saying we want to contribute to 2,000 youth adopting healthy lifestyle habits through the sports activities that we run. And that's not just, it's not just a change in perspective. It requires a change in work and in systems and everything like that. All reasons why a coach is so important to support organizations in doing that work. So a lot of what Innoweave does is rooted in this idea of intended impact. What are you as an organization aiming to achieve, and how are you holding yourself accountable? So it all kind of starts with an intended impact statement. So what are the outcomes you as an organization want to hold yourself accountable for? Who are you aiming to serve? What's the target audience or cause that you're aiming to serve? How do you define it? How do you track progress? And by when? When do you expect to reach that impact in the work that you're doing? These are all concepts that we like to see rooted in different ways throughout all the work that Innoweave does, and something that we know it's very helpful for organizations to have an outside perspective come in and offer support with, and that's where the coaching model plays such an important role. And of course, the systems awareness that goes with that is vital. So how are you operating in your ecosystem? How does your contribution lead to other contributions, lead to other connections and changes? And what's the real point of leverage for your impact, and how can you generate it, and how can you maximize it? So those are big concepts, but it all comes through in the Innoweave streams, which is the next part that we're going to talk about. These streams, as we call them, essentially are just sort of different ways of looking at social innovation, or different social innovation approaches that we aim to support organizations to use in their work. And those are supported either because they're innovative and not as many organizations know how to use them yet, so there's some support needed to help organizations use them, or they're looking for additional ways for organizations to succeed in implementing a social innovation approach. So perhaps there's already some support out there on this idea, and the concept is relatively well known, but actually putting it into practice is challenging, and therefore Innoweave is supporting it. And of course, when we're talking about innovation, we're talking about approaches that vary over time. They adapt, they evolve, they grow, and it's important for the platform to be able to adapt and grow with them. So the social innovation approaches, or streams, that we currently support on the program are for organizations and for collaboratives. As we say, it can be a group of organizations that are doing the work. If they're looking at those core questions of clarity and mission alignment and achieving that intended impact statement, we have the impact and strategic clarity stream and the collective impact stream. Collective impact, of course, being for groups of organizations. If they're moving more into that growing their impact space, we have the scaling impact stream, the social enterprise stream, and the policy engagement stream. And if they're moving more into that space of wanting to learn and adapt their practices and make changes based on new information and the evolution of the space that they're in, then we have the developmental evaluation stream and the impact measurement stream. So across those sort of 7 core streams is where you see Innoweave offering the bulk of its support. That being said, we're a flexible platform. We don't aim to silo our support in any way. So these kind of have soft edges. They'll tend to interact with one another. But those are the streams on which we offer support and for which organizations can apply to. And the last little bit that you'll hear from me is on this concept of coaching principles. And I've talked a little bit about why we support the coaching model. That it's challenging for organizations to approach these new concepts themselves, and there's really a need for that external perspective, that external support to help an organization kind of move through the uncertainty that can come with an innovation and help bring them to that space of greater clarity and greater intended impact. So in the coaching work that we support, we have these 5 principles that we look for in the work that organizations are doing. One is an impact focus, right? Is the work really impact focused? Does it have that clarity, and does that ring through every line of what they're doing? The second is, as we say, hands-on learning. It's difficult to do this without getting your hands a little bit dirty. You've got to be willing to work with what your organization does, crack open your strategy, have those challenging conversations, and it's got to be done in a very applied way. The theory is always part of a conversation on social innovation, but impact comes from actually doing things, and so that hands-on element has to be there. Third principle is that the organization does the work. This is why it's coaching and not consulting. A coach is there to help an organization do this work and come to where they're wanting to go. But just like a coach on a sports team, you can't get on the field yourself and actually score the goal. The organization has to be able to do that for themselves. But to get them to be able to do that is our fourth principle, which is building capability. That's where the true value of coaching really shines through, which is in helping that organization be capable of doing these things for themselves. So how are we building that muscle? How are we supporting them in doing that strength, so that when a coach leaves an engagement, an organization is actually better placed to be able to do something like that again in the future, rather than having just somebody come in and do a transactional piece of work for them. And our fifth coaching principle is continuous learning. Everything is learning based here on Innoweave. We're dealing with innovation. We don't know the answers to everything. It's we wouldn't have a job if we did. I like to tell coaches when we're starting engagements, if an engagement ended having learned and done exactly what you thought it was at the beginning of an engagement, well, that would be a first. That's never happened on it. Across the nearly 1,000 times that we've done this, everything changes, evolves, and learns as we're going through this process, and it's an important coaching principle for us to underscore that.
Great, thank you, Ryan. I'm going to give you a little break now. I will take you through the next few sections, starting with your online coach profile. So we're getting into a little more like practical details of this roadmap here. So organizations who come to us and don't already have a coach in mind are likely to browse through our coaches directory. So we recommend that your biography be tailored to the Innoweave context, meaning that it references your experience supporting community sector organizations in various domains, that it references experience that is relevant to the coaching streams you've identified, and that it gives a bit of a sense of what it's like to work with you. If you provide services in French and in English, we ask that you send us a bio that is translated, so both French and English versions. And it's really good to update it regularly as your bio evolves or your areas of expertise or focus shifts. As you gain new clients, you can send us those updates via info@innoweave.ca, and we can make those changes to your profile as requested. If you choose to add your Innoweave coaching experience to other professional profiles, such as LinkedIn, we ask that you describe yourself simply as an Innoweave coach. Please don't refer to McConnell or the use of words like staff or employee. So just keeping it simply Innoweave coach and mentioning the streams that you coach in. Okay, so application process for an organization and the approval process. We're going to spend a bit of time going over each step in the Innoweave user journey. The reason being that coaches are often the first point of contact for organizations, and they'll be referred to Innoweave through their relationships with their coaches. So it's a good opportunity for coaches to share useful information and even steward clients through the Innoweave process. So that's why we're sharing this information with you today. We've included a lot of details in this section, so you can refer to it as needed, use it as a tool or reference in the future. Okay, so the engage and inform, which is the first step in the user journey. This is an invitation for organizations to become acquainted with the social innovation practices that we support and to start assessing whether one or more approaches is a fit for their unique needs. At this step, it's important that organizations validate their understanding of a given approach and its objectives, because language can be ambiguous. For example, scaling impact can mean different things to different people. So that's why we have several tools and touch points to help organizations and coaches gain a common understanding about a specific approach and what that entails for Innoweave. Once organizations are informed, there are a few things that they can do to get ready prior to submitting an application. So there are self-assessment tools that are available for each coaching stream. This is a series of 5 questions that can help flag any potential issues around fit and readiness prior to investing time and energy into an application process. We often encourage organizations also to speak with a coach before engaging in the application process. This is another way to test whether a coaching engagement and a coaching approach is right for them. Lastly, we encourage potential applicants to register in advance of the deadline, because this process can take a few days. Essentially creating an account on the Flux portal, that step needs to be validated by a physical person in the McConnell office, and it has to be done during business days. So it can take a few days and delay the application process. So that's why we recommend doing that in advance. Also worth mentioning that the transcripts of the full application form are available on the Apply for Support website page. We've included the link in the slide deck here. So Innoweave's application process is a 2-step process. The first step is the expression of interest, which is a short questionnaire that's intended to assess whether a coaching engagement in the identified stream is the right fit and timing for an organization, and whether they'll have the capacity and resources for implementation. Depending on the scale of the project, Innoweave funding may not be enough. So we'll want to see that an organization has other sources of funding lined up to support the overall project beyond the piece that Innoweave would be supporting. It takes our team about 2 weeks to review EOI applications after they've been submitted. And if all criteria are reasonably met, we invite the organization to the second stage of the application process, which is the request for support. So organizations have about a month to complete a request for support application once they've been invited to do so. This is when they're asked to identify their selected coach along with project details such as start date, budget, expected duration, the statement of work, and the amount being requested. There are limits to how much an organization can request, and the submitted statement of work should reflect the value of that requested amount. So it can happen that an Innoweave project kind of inserts itself into a bigger project, and that's totally that's totally fine. But the details of the project that's included in the application should be specific to the piece that Innoweave would be supporting.
Just to flag on the request limits here, these are the limits as are shown and reflected in our system. So for impact and strategic clarity, 12,500. For collective impact, policy engagement, social enterprise, and scaling, that's 10,000. For developmental evaluation, that's 10,000 a year for up to 3 years. And for impact measurement, 10,000 for one coach or 15,000 for 2 coaches. Those are the limits as those are shown publicly. If any of you are working on applications that are in development right now, we have, as you know, we have an intake round going on right now. The forthcoming Innoweave round will have adjustments to how much coaches are compensated, and adjustment for inflation. So organizations will still apply for the same amounts. These are still the limits that we're showing externally, but for all successful projects that we do end up funding in the forthcoming round, these amounts will be adjusted so that the coaches are receiving higher compensation to reflect for inflation.
Thanks, Brian. Moving on to the next step in the user journey would be the kickoff call, as well as essentially the meat of the coaching engagement, the implement and learn step. So when an organization's approved, an automated email is sent to the organization to announce, either the approval or the decline. The organization then is in charge of notifying their coach about that announcement. And the organization is responsible to offer a few availabilities for a kickoff call that will include them, their coach, and the Innoweave team. During the kickoff call, which is typically a 30-minute call, that includes, as mentioned, the coach, the project team lead, and the Innoweave liaison. You'll go over the Innoweave process, you'll go over the details of the letter of agreement, and you'll also discuss a learning check-in schedule. It's kind of up to the discretion of the organization to decide how and what frequency that they want for these types of learning check-ins. And at the end of the engagement, the reporting and capturing of learnings, essentially we send organizations a post-coaching form to capture those key insights and their feedback. And this really should be filled out by the organization. We're also working on a feedback form for coaches, which we hope to implement soon. But in the meantime, coaches can also share their feedback at any point via email or by connecting with their Innoweave contact for a call. Any important document that was created during the mandate can be submitted instead of a report. So we really trust that the organization, along with the coach, will be able to identify what information would be useful for Innoweave to see what the coaching mandate led to in terms of learnings and how those will be integrated into supporting increasing their impact. So in the past, we've had 3 intake rounds with kind of static deadlines. There's the first round in the year is the April expression of interest deadline, followed by a June request for support deadline, and typically an August to September kind of kickoff. The next intake is typically an August expression of interest deadline with an October request for support deadline, and projects kicking off usually in January of the next year. And the final intake round has typically been in December for the expression of interest, with a February request for support deadline. And typical kickoffs around May. Later this year, we will be reviewing whether this is the best way to continue working, and any changes will be announced in 2024. Anything to add on that piece, Ryan?
If you are affiliated with a group that's in the current round, which is they applied on April 15th, the request for support deadline has been moved back to the 12th of June for organizations in that round, simply because the round that we took in on the 15th of April was our largest ever. It was more than 2.5 times larger than a normal Innoweave round, and so it took us until yesterday to be able to process it and send out the invitations for requests for support. So to account for that delay and ensure that organizations still have a month to complete their request for support, those will now be due on the 12th of June.
Thank you. Okay, the next section is covers roles and responsibilities during a coaching mandate. So for the funded organization, it's the organization that's responsible for assembling a team of typically 3 to 6 people who can dedicate the required time and who are in a position to influence change within their organization. The organization is the one that executes the work, and they take all the strategic decisions. So it's, for that reason, if we want the change to really stick, it's important to have buy-in from senior leadership and key stakeholders from the very beginning of the project, and ideally have them involved in the project team in one way or another throughout the engagement. The coach is really there to support the working team by helping them plan and guide the work, share their specific expertise through training, workshops, or one-on-one sessions, etc. Helping direct the conversation and ask probing questions, support data and information gathering and analysis processes, and much more as outlined in a statement of work. Innoweave plays an important role in helping organizations and coaches get oriented with the program. But once an organization is approved for funding, Innoweave's responsible for inviting the organization and the coach to a kickoff meeting, providing funding for the coaching work, organizing one or more learning calls with the project leads, and coaches are welcome, receiving and reviewing pertinent documents created by the organization during the coaching engagement, as well as a post-coaching learning report, inviting the organization and the coach to a closing call to debrief on the overall experience and learnings, and aggregate all those learnings and finding ways of sharing them back with the broader community. The payment process. The payment process for the portion that Innoweave funds, of course, is done through invoicing, usually directly between the coach and Innoweave. Payment timing and percentages can be adjusted for individual coaches, but generally the model that we use is we provide 50% after the kickoff call and the remaining 50% at the completion of the project. So following this logic, coaches would invoice us twice, and the invoice guidelines are all outlined in the letter of agreement. Nowadays, we typically make payments electronically, but we can also mail checks if that's the preferred method. And if you have any doubts about this, you can always write to info@innoweave.ca. So who is your liaison at Innoweave? Well, our team of 7 people, you can see our photos in the corner there. Each coaching mandate will be assigned to one of the team members that you see. And this is how you'll come to get to know the different team members. You can write to your liaison anytime with your questions or request a call, but it's a good thing to always CC info@innoweave.ca just in case someone's out of office. That's about it for me. I'll pass it back to Ryan for the final section before we open up for questions.
Great. Thank you, Vero. So we'd like to share some of the things that we're working on, some of the tools, resources, and coach communities that we're aiming to bring forward for coaches and also therefore for organizations a little bit. So the tools and resources that are available, they vary by coaching stream. So there's definitely a lot of resources that are shared on the Innoweave website. They can be found on each coaching stream. And if you have any pieces that you'd like to share with us that you feel are valuable, an article, a tool, anything like that, we're happy to see it. We're happy to include it in the list of resources. We're happy to find ways to share it. It's not just the Innoweave website where we keep these. Some of the key resources are also even listed in the application form for organizations to take a look at as they're going through. And different coaching streams have some of them have dedicated resource libraries that are kept of things that Innoweave has maybe supported the development of, or that coaches have trialed and found useful. So, for instance, on the impact measurement coaching stream, there's a library of resources of shared tools that coaches have developed and that they're happy to share with one another. And we also look for opportunities to connect coaches with their peers in the work that they're doing. The Innoweave coach group, as we like to think of it, it very much is up to a coach for how much they'd like to take part in that if they'd like to. But we know that there is this amazing community of practitioners out there across the country who do great work, and we want to have the opportunity to provide you a chance to connect with your colleagues as much as we can. So we have sort of two functions, two versions of connection that we do there. The first being coach community circles. These are convened by Innoweave, and they're sort of cross-platform connection opportunities for peer learning and opportunities to both engage with the Innoweave team and your peers on subjects that may be of importance. And the second are called communities of practice. These are led by the coaches themselves, and they focus on particular streams. So there's an impact measurement community of practice. There's a developmental evaluation community of practice, things like that. Innoweave, of course, can facilitate coaches joining those as they're active. They're not equally active across all the streams, so there may or may not be one that is of interest. But we're happy to make connections as we can. So info@innoweave.ca is where we share information on coach community circles. So we would encourage you to register, or sorry, the newsletter is where we share information on that. So we would encourage you to register for that, and ensure that we're getting you as much information as we can.